Okay, Greg Clarke has resigned as FA chairman with immediate effect. This follows on from a meeting he had earlier today with the Digital Media, Culture and Sports Select Committee via video link, which is a committee that sits in the Houses of Parliament that oversees various areas in this area and asks questions and asks people in the industries concerned to give evidence when there's an industry-wide problem. Now, football's had a bit of a problem with sorting out itself because of COVID. The sport is losing a lot of money, lower league clubs risk going bust, and there seems to be no solution to a funding formula from the Premier League to the EFL. League One and League Two rejected their £50 million pound-offer. The Championship are in discussions with the Premier League about emergency payments, and of course Liverpool and Man United came out with wanting to restructure the Premier League to suit their financial ends. That fell flat, and a whole host of other issues. Now, Greg Clarke was giving evidence on a variety of issues besetting football right now. Two things have basically cost him his job. He referred to gay people as a life choice. If you are gay and want to come out as gay, as a life choice, and he referred to ethnic minorities as coloured. This same select committee said, in response to the Mark Sampson scandal when he was sacked as women's manager over the Yeni Aluko racism scandal, and that's a divisive issue in itself, and that was 3 years ago almost to the day, that the FA was not fit for purpose and needed to reform. 3 years down the line, the FA chairman has had to resign after giving evidence, yet again, in front of this same select committee, and he refers to gay people as a life choice, their sexuality as a life choice, and refers to people of ethnic backgrounds as coloured. It shows how out of touch the FA actually is with a lot of the problems it is facing. Now, when he was giving evidence, he obviously was referring to the abuse that black and Asian minorities face when they're players on social media, as well as female football players face on social media. He was also giving evidence about, this was the question about a gay player coming out, and then he linked it into the social media abuse that other minorities already have within the game. It is there. The way he worded it has cost him his job. The thing is, this same select committee said that the FA was not fit for purpose 3 years ago in its diversity, in its structures, in its governance. It basically stated in its report that was compiled after the Mark Sampson affair that the FA was the old boys club, which basically means, the same group of people rotate around the organisation, or they have friends in other organisations at a similar level and they get invited in. There seems to be no growth from the bottom, with people getting promoted through the levels of the FA to reach the top job, which is FA chairman, which is what Greg Clarke was holding. Now, he has been replaced on a temporary basis by Peter McCormick as interim FA chairman while they seek a replacement. This could not come at a worse time for English football. We've already seen divisiveness within the game all the way from March through to now. We've seen clubs on their financial knees. Macclesfield going out of business during the COVID crisis. Bury obviously going out of business last season. We've seen issues where the lower leagues are saying we could cease to exist. The non-league clubs could cease to exist. And this is deeply, deeply worrying. There is money problems within the game. There's clearly a lack of authority from the FA and the Premier League and the EFL when clubs are saying, we'll restructure the league ourselves. We'll put forward a plan, rather than the FA wanting to govern the game. We'll govern it ourselves. With Man United and Liverpool's plan to restructure the Premier League and have teams have protected voting rights, which went down like, a lead balloon. Obviously. Then the European Super League format idea was leaked, which again shows a lack of respect and a weak governance from UEFA and the FA, because again they were not involved in any discussions. This was clubs being the power brokers. So the FA already has a lack of trust with the clubs in governing the game. The PFA were telling players not to take pay cuts or wage deferrals during the height of the crisis back in March, April and May, when clubs were furloughing non-playing staff. And the pay-per-view fiasco that, to watch games on pay-per-view, which is, damaged the reputation and image of football as well. This has all been building. So this select committee called the head of the EFL, the head of the Premier League, and Greg Clarke, who is now the ex-head of the FA, to a video meeting to discuss the issues within football and give their evidence why they cannot come to a financial solution for the lower leagues, why there are issues where clubs seem to think that they are above the governing body with coming up with ideas that will suit their needs, not the game, and a whole host of other things. There is still rampant racism in football. It's not going away. It's not is it as bad as it was in the 80s? No. Is there still a problem? Yes. There are still issues with homophobia, and there's a reason why we have no openly gay players playing the game professionally. I think Thomas Hitzelsberger is the latest, one of the only high-profile ex-players to come out as gay. There's a reason for that. There's a reason why the abuse that players face online is a free-for-all. And yes, Greg Clarke was right when he said yes, what these players face is a free-for-all. But there are some deep concerns that the FA has got these structures within them that is out of touch with the rest of society, much like Premier League football players and clubs are out of touch with the rest of society, and haven't quite read the room when it comes to like the pay-per-view fiasco, for example, and how fans don't have a lot of money. I mean, today it was announced that unemployment's hit 4.8%. Like 400,000 odd people lost their jobs between July and September, as official figures state. It's a lot of people. So football seems to live in this bubble where it's out of touch with the rest of reality. The fact that Greg Clarke has said these things and worded things these ways just shows how out of touch football is. This is a guy who's in charge of the game, the government of the game. But what has happened is what was warned about 3 years ago, when this same select committee stated that the FA was not fit for purpose and the structures within it needs to change. 3 years down the line, this has now happened. Now the FA has a power vacuum, where Greg Clarke has just resigned with immediate effect, and they have an interim in charge while they look for a replacement. The wealthiest sport in the world and the wealthiest footballing league structure in the world, which is the English professional leagues, has a way of constantly shooting itself in the foot and constantly self-harming. Now, the fact that a member of parliament said, "Do you want to retract your statement? And why are you referring to ethnic minorities as coloured? And why are you referring to being gay or lesbian as a life choice?" and actually prompted him to apologise, tells you where the game is at in governance side of things. You know, yes, we can argue about better regulation of social media, and that's another topic for another day. But the fact that the head of the FA has referred to Afro-Caribbeans and Asians as coloured, and referred to, if you are gay, it's a life choice. It's a divisive topic. Some of the things that were discussed today, but my God, that is so out of touch with mainstream society. It's unreal. Now, the fact that he chose to resign immediately tells you that there are other things going on as well. If you fully read the article on the Sky Sports News website about his resignation, and I believe on the BBC website as well, and ITV News and the various other independent sports websites, you will hear that he had been questioning his position at the FA for quite some time and was considering resigning anyway. That tells you that there's possibly more to come out about why he decided to resign immediately, rather than, get on with it, cop the criticism that he would have copped. Clearly there are other things going on, but it also shows that how out of touch and old boys club the FA actually is. So we'll see what happens. We'll see who ends up being the permanent replacement. Obviously there's an interim in charge, and we'll see what actually comes out of this select committee hearing and what recommendations are published, because 3 years ago they recommended the FA had to restructure and reform. 3 years later, yet another scandal has now hit the FA very, very quickly, and now the FA is without a leader. There's a power vacuum there. So, worst case scenario for football in the last, 12 hours. But there you go, I'm going to leave that there. Place your thoughts below. Should he have resigned? Should he have stuck it out? Were his comments misplaced? Or are there more deep-set issues at play here? But there we go. Thank you very much for watching. Place your thoughts below, and I'll have some more videos for you very, very soon.